And hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. I'm Jeff Gorm, and I'll tell you what, we are having such a blast calling high school football this season. Every single week, we seem to be covering high school football more than anyone else in the entire world. And I'll tell you what, now we're going to be joined by my favorite person in the whole world, my guy in the booth, the great Ghazal Hassan. How you doing today, Ghazal?
It was the great urban laureate Sean Puffy Combs that once postulated "mo money, mo problems." That's the thing about football. Mo football, but no problems.
I'll tell you what, have you ever seen a city cover the sport of high school football like we do at City of Riverside?
I have not. I'll be brutally honest, Jeff. I have not. They leave no stone unturned, and sometimes they even add stones to make sure they're not unturned. But no, it's been great fun. I love the wall-to-wall coverage now. Doubleheaders every week. You throw RCC in there. I think in a couple of weeks we're giving them 3 A&Ws, 3 games. So, I mean, and it's exciting now. We're into league play right now.
I'll tell you what, we had some great ones last week. Let's start off with that RCC game as RCC battled College of the Canyons. A much tighter game than we anticipated going into that one.
You know what, Teddy Iasenda, who's the head coach at Canyons, you tip your cap to him and his team. They bought it. They had beaten RCC last year, and this was a pride thing for them. They lost a couple of tough games in a row to tough teams, and it came all the way down to that last minute or so. They had the ball down 3. We thought maybe they'd recovered a fumble. The ball carrier's knee instead was ruled down. And I went back and looked at it. He was down. His elbow and his knee were both down. That's why the ref made the call. But I mean, the Cougars gave RCC all they could handle, and you could tell even at the end, the gears were turning in Tom Kraft's mind because he was happy with the win, but he was already thinking, okay, we got the bye week coming up. What are we going to do? What are we going to install? What can we improve?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was impressed with Coach Kraft's play calling at the end of the game where he punted it deep and just said, hey, you got to traverse 96 yards or whatever it was. And it was just smart football. But I do think there are some questions that Coach Kraft's going to have to answer in this bye week, like you mentioned.
You talked about it in the broadcast. I think Canyons kind of gave a little bit of a blueprint as to how to play RCC if they don't have the ball. They can't score. Now, the problem generally is, Jeff, teams that do that don't have the big play capability. That's where Canyons is unique. They had that mammoth offensive line so they can play the ball control, and we saw how much talent they had on the outside. And then, of course, tip of the cap to Don Corbett, their defensive coordinator. He did probably, since I've called RCC games, maybe the best job we've seen of every defense. When's the last time you saw RCC scoreless in the first quarter, Jeff?
Never. I mean, never. I can be honest with you, under Tom Kraft, I don't think it's ever happened. So let's
they did a great job.
They did. Now let's talk about the high school games. We had a couple. I mean, we didn't know what we were going to see when we saw Patriot. Coach Chris Fowler came in. You know, we don't get a chance to watch them very much in the preseason, but boy, they were surprising coming into River Valley League action against Arlington, weren't they?
You know, we heard all the story. We saw they were 4-1, and we heard, well, you know, who have they played? You know, the one team that kind of matched up with them in terms of size and speed was Grand Terrace. They couldn't beat him. But what I love about Coach Fowler, I know you know him a long time, it's, you know, he does what he does. He doesn't try to do anything fancy. You know, their best player wasn't on the field, Jeff. Josiah Felix wasn't available for them, their sophomore running back, but they moved right along. They ran for, I think, nearly 418 yards. They put 42 points on the board just doing what they do. You know, Isaiah Miramontes, their quarterback, kind of orchestrated the offense. They ran the ball. They threw it a couple times. They had that nice catch. Garcia at the end of the first half ripped off a 30-yard touchdown reception. But they did what they did, and I was more impressed with how they played on defense, how they tackled, and how they kept in the lane. They didn't allow anything to break off. The one lapse they had was on the kickoff return that Luke Rogers bought back 84 yards.
Yeah, Arlington has yet to score offensively in a couple games. It's going to be tough because we have the Norte Vista Braves and the Lions this Friday night. What are your thoughts on that game? I mean, Norte Vista is turned into a juggernaut again. Arlington now trying to look for some answers, how to score. Defensively, they're not bad, but they can't score the football right now.
You know, this could kind of be one of those games that helps. You know, Ken Batter's going to get angry with me, but it might just be what the doctor ordered for Arlington because they know exactly what's going on, you know. Now, Norte Vista is probably a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, but kind of when you know what's in front of you You can adjust to it. You can scheme for it. It's not like Ken's going to have his quarterback throw 35 times. That might throw them for a bit of a loop. They're going to run power left, power right, student body right, student body. You understand that's going on. But yeah, the challenge will be, that's a pretty good defense for Novi. How do we attack them? What adjustments do we make to attack them? Now, I'll give a little caveat is that Bijan Turner, he banged his knee in the game against A.B. Miller. I don't think he was at 100% last week, but they said he's kind of getting back there. If he's at 100% and their O-line's at 100%, remember they had a little bit of patchwork on the O-line, they might be able to muster some resistance. I think the first, start strong, right? That first quarter, that first half is going to be key for the Lions.
Yeah, and then let's talk about our second game. We did have a great one last week with Hillcrest versus Ramona. Ramona right now seems like the cream of the crop, but Hillcrest is going to come in to Patriot. We're going to cover that'll be the second game on Friday night. I think that's going to be a great ball game, and that could really be for second place in the River Valley League.
It's a huge game. I just did my first set of projections for the CIF, and right now Hillcrest on the outside looking in. Okay, and that's not a bad thing. Like I always try to tell people, it's not a prediction; it's a projection based on the numbers and how CIF does it. But Hillcrest needs to stack some wins. And Arlington is that perfect team that they need to go beat because they'll likely be at some point or another competing with them for a spot. I think in the first projection, I had Patriot in Division 12. So Hillcrest probably is going to fall in that 11, 12, 13 range. And, Norte Vista, I think I had them, they're the 5 seed in Division 9. Ramona came out the 1 seed in Division 7. So that league, there's going to be a lot of movement in that league. And I think it's very realistic for Arlington and for Hillcrest, even La Sierra, to be able to try to squeeze into the playoffs.
Well, Ghazal, I know you've had the projections. How do we find those projections? How do the fans reach out and find those?
Go to Substack. Broadcaster's Tale. I promise you, all the political stuff on my Substack is a joke. No, I'm saying if I address politics, it's in a joking manner. But you go to the Broadcaster's Tale at Substack, and I'll update those every week. I wanted to wait till we had a week of league play. There's still some leagues that haven't played league games, so it makes it hard to kind of project AQs. But it's just we're trying to do it. And at this year, CIF is late getting their playoff handbook out. I was waiting for the playoff handbook. They said October, it's still not out, so we threw it out there anyway. It's fall, it's Halloween coming up, baseball playoffs, pumpkin latte. I'm not a big pumpkin latte guy, but some people are. October is coming, so I figured let me give you something. Let me share something, Jeffrey.
Well, Ghazal, it is always wonderful. You do an amazing job. You're the best broadcaster in the business, and I love working with you. You and I will be on a call Friday night as Arlington and Novi will battle it on, and J.R. Ibarra and Nick Rice will be on the call as Patriot and Hillcrest square up this week here on Riverside TV. Ghazal, as always, thank you, buddy, and we'll see you Friday night at the game. And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV, as we are now joined by the head coach and athletic director of Patriot High School, Chris Fowler. How you doing today, Coach?
All right, how you doing? Thank you for having me on, man.
Well, Coach, we had an opportunity to watch you guys play last week in the opener of the River Valley League. You came in 4-1 going into River Valley League play, and you got that first win against a CIF defending champ, Arlington High School. Great win last week, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our kids worked really hard in the offseason. We ended up last year beating Arlington in the last game, but because of the coin flip and all that stuff, not making the playoffs. So we had a little, axe to grind against Arlington, for making that run when we beat them the last game. But, they did a good job last year and they made the River Valley League proud. But, we kind of carried the axe, all year round so we could wait for this first game in league to, kind of, take it to them.
Now, Coach, you guys played, like you said, you're 5-1 now, playing great football. How in the last couple of years, what has changed with the culture with Patriot?
Yeah, a lot of things happened between the COVID years and, just things that have changed the culture of sports in general. But what it also has done is brought in these kids together. They kind of know that they got to lean on each other. And the kids that have been here the whole time with us through those COVID years, our senior group right now, they went through all that stuff together and just kind of, decided that, hey, they're a good group of kids, and they're going to take this senior year and make it their own. You know, they were one win away last year. I told them one win away from making the playoffs and making a playoff run like Arlington did. So let's not leave it into somebody else's hands this year. Let's take that one game at a time and get us in there.
Now, Coach, is the ultimate goal then to make the playoffs, or is the goal to win everything? What are your goals that you've set for your team?
You know, I'm not one of those guys who, you know, I set like a lot of, you know, team goals or anything like that. I mean, I'm pretty simple. You know, sorry about that.
That's okay.
You win your rival games. You know, we schedule our rival teams and you beat them. You have a winning record at the end of the year, because I believe if you have a winning record, you should be in the playoffs. And 3 is that you make the playoffs. That's it. Those are my team goals. I don't have goals of winning, you know, league or CIF. All that stuff takes care of itself. You know, this is high school sports. A lot of different things happen through the year, and you can't control any of that stuff. I mean, you can't control injuries. You can't control, you know, the weather being 106 degrees outside on some days and you can't practice, or days that, you know, we go and our one loss, you know, in Southern California, it's a torrential downstorm when we go play Grand Terrace. So you can't control those kinds of things. So, you know, I make it simple for our kids. I tell them, hey, I don't go out and recruit you. You come and play for us. And I want you to have a great time. I want you to have fun playing for us. So I'm not going to make it, you know, too daunting on you. We're going to have a good time when we're doing it, because if you're not having a good time, why do it?
Now, Coach, you're the athletic director, and everybody talks about the buy-in of Patriot High School. You have a lot of guys in your program. Is that because do you guys share a lot of athletes with other sports?
Yes, you know, that's one thing that when we're hiring coaches for our school, we kind of emphasize the fact that, you know, even though we're a bigger school in our area at 2,400 kids, we want to share the athletes that we have. We want to make sure that, you know, you're a well-rounded athlete, you're a well-rounded person in society, and that if you play football, we expect you to play another sport, or you be on a club, or you be in the ASB, or you're in our link club or link crew on campus, that you're doing something else. You're buying into the school culture and having fun. Because I know one thing, you know, I wish when I was in high school, I had done more things that I did. I had joined more clubs or joined ASB and things like that. I don't want kids looking back and saying that that's what they want to do, or they wish they had done. I want them to do it.
Now, Coach, let's take our attention over to Hillcrest. Hillcrest, a very, very solid start. They played Ramona. Ramona's, I mean, the real deal. But how important is this next game going to be when it comes to River Valley League standings, do you think?
You know, really important. You know, we're at 1-0, they're at 0-1. You know, yeah, I remember us. You can't fall 0-2, because then you're behind the 8 ball, and you're always trying to claw and get your way back up to even. We don't want to be even. We want to stay on top of that hill and, you know, be looking down at those other schools that are trying to make the playoffs. So it's going to be a really hard-fought battle. I mean, last year, you know, we were at halftime 24-21. We were in the game, and then, you know, just towards the end, you know, they kind of, you know, were bigger and stronger than us and took it to us. So I told the kids this week, we got to do the same thing, but opposite. We've got to make sure that if it's a close game, that we don't leave it to be decided by somebody else. We make sure that we go out and take it. Our defense has been playing great as of late, you know, and it's a testament to, you know, my defense coordinator, Aaron Randall, and Jacob Flores, for getting those guys prepared, and then our you know, our defensive players who have taken it upon themselves this, you know, this 3-5-3 defense. They're a swarming defense. Hey, we're not big. We don't have those big guys like in Norte Vista or at Ramona, but we do swarm. And, you know, our outside backers, you know, Donovan and Brandon Lopez, you know, they do a lot to come up and force things and make it to where our, you know, our outside guys and inside guys can swarm it and do what they do.
Well, I'll tell you what, your offense looked stellar on Friday night when you guys played Arlington. You play smash mouth football. Is that the kind of football you guys always have played at Patriot?
Yeah, you know, like I said before, we don't have a lot of big guys. So what we do is we're going to use all 11 guys. You know, some guys have those quarterbacks that just sit back there and throw the ball. Our quarterback's going to be a running back. So we're going to use him to run the ball. He's going to block. He's going to be an integral part of what we do. We have 5 great linemen. You know, our center, Armandaris, our tackles, you know, Lopez. And, you know, we do a lot of things to where we have our gap scheme. We have our zone schemes. What we try to do is just make sure that we're in the right spot. We're looking at the defense and seeing where they're weak, and we're going to try to exploit that. At halftime, we always got to come back out because some teams, when you run the ball a lot, they're going to load that box, put 7, 8 guys in that box. We've even seen 9 guys in the box before. But we're not going to stop what we do, and our quarterback's good enough, Isaiah, to put the ball up over people's head. Like last game when we had to, we got the punt and we got the turnover right before halftime with under a minute, and he threw the 30-yard touchdown. So, those are the things that, when we ask the kids to do it, that they're prepared to do it, and that's what we're working on every day.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you what, it was a pleasant surprise. We hadn't had a chance to watch you guys here on Riverside TV, and we have you 2 weeks in a row, and I'll tell you, it couldn't be a better game as you guys are going to battle Hillcrest at your place. Actually, it'll be at Rubidoux High School at 7 o'clock on Friday night. Coach, thank you again for joining us, and looking forward to watching you guys the rest of the way here on Riverside TV.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for all you guys do for this community. Have a good one.
He's the great Coach Chris Fowler, the athletic director at Patriot High School. We're going to be right back here on Riverside TV with more on the Coach's Perspective. And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV, as we are now joined by the head coach of the Norte Vista Braves, currently in first place in the River Valley League, Ken Batdorf. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm always great when I get to talk to you.
Oh, I know you're full of poop.
Well, Ken Batdorf, you guys are 1-0. You had a great win against La Sierra, and we have another one coming up, which we're going to cover this Friday night. You guys are going to be playing the Arlington Lions, the defending CIF champs. How are you feeling about this?
Arlington is a pretty good team. People underestimate them. They got a really good running attack. And one thing that I cannot say enough good things about Coach Argamosa is last year people talked about how they lost all those games, but he held that team together. And when you lose 1 or 2 games, it's tough. And what he had to go through and hold that team together, he deserves a ton of respect, and that team deserves a ton of respect.
Now, Coach, talking about Kevin Argamosa, you guys run similar stuff offensively. Did he reach out to you last year during that 7-game losing streak? And did you guys talk at all about changing that offense a bit?
We talked a little bit, but, again, I'm going to give him all the credit in the world. He's the guy that did it. He's the guy that held those kids together. He put an offense that his kids understood, that he understood. And, again, all the credit in the world goes to him. Because I'll tell you what, when I lose a couple games, when I'm ready to chew nails and you're worried about kids walking, and he held it together. And you can't say enough good things about that. You don't realize it until you lose 1 game or 2 games and kids start questioning everything.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you what, we could have questioned a lot after that first loss of the year. You lost 19 players last year, and you and I we talk every day. We thought it was a rebuild, but not quite of a rebuild because you guys have really bounced back.
Well, we got a lot of good kids. We have a kid, Marion Richardson, who's a very quiet leader. He's leading our team in rushing. You don't hear him say much. He just goes out and works hard. And one of the reasons I think we've gotten a lot better defensively is we're using him as our safety. Now, it's limited in his carries a little bit. Even though he still has like 750 yards, he's playing, full-time defense. So, a guy like that. We had a guy like Eddie Villarreal, who's our tight end for the last 2 years. He's like, Coach, if you need me to move to tackle, I understand. And that's huge because kids, especially the kids nowadays, are all about what's in it for me. And here's 2 kids sacrificing. Demarion not getting as many carries. Eddie, somehow there was a tackle-eligible play, but both kids sacrificing for the team. And that's what we needed, and that's great from both of them.
Well, Coach, the last time we covered you guys on Riverside TV, you had 6 different players score. Has that kind of become a norm this year, considering you're still figuring out what you have?
Yeah, I think we had 9 scored. I don't even know how many scored. 8 scored the other night. I mean, it's one of those things where it's really neat when you get killed. And I have some parents say, so only got like 5 touches. And my response is there's only 1 ball. and we're trying to give as many kids opportunities. We got a lot of great kids. They're doing really well, and I mean, if you look at the touchdowns by our team, I think we're at 12 different kids that scored, and that's just a great thing. You can't just key on one guy.
Now, Coach, you've watched a lot of the teams, obviously, in the River Valley League. What are your initial thoughts of like Ramona, and how good do you think they are?
That might be the best Ramona team I've ever seen. They are truly outstanding. They're incredibly well coached. They've got fantastic players. They're well disciplined. So, all the credit goes to Coach Mashinsky. He's done a fantastic job of, getting those kids to play at a high level, and that's great. But don't sleep on the other teams in our league. I saw Hillcrest played them tough for a quarter, and then they had some adversity, and even still at the end of the half, it was still anybody's game. So Hillcrest has got some talent. Patriot, they did a whale of a job against Arlington last week, so they're really good. So, and even Arlington, you never know. So, I mean, I can't sleep on anybody. We have to be prepared. I know Ramona's outstanding, but so are other people.
Yeah, and talking about the River Valley League being a lot better this year, I don't remember a year where you had every team in the River Valley League with at least 2 wins going into conference.
Yeah, that's unusual. I think the thing is, it's getting better, the level. The thing that was really exciting is everybody's got a freshman, JV, and varsity team, every team in our league. And the best way to get better is to play. So when you have teams playing all 3 games, it does better for your program, better for our league, and it's just a good thing.
Now, Coach, you're over 200 wins at Norte Vista. I mean, if you reflect upon those wins, that's 7 wins a year for the last almost 30 years. That's an incredible feat. How do you do it with just neighborhood kids?
Yeah, we get what we get. And everybody kind of makes fun of our offense, but I think it's based on we're going to do what we can with our kids, make it simple. Some of the terms I've used when I call plays is absolutely ridiculous, but our kids understand it. And we want our kids to be tougher and better and get better instead of, I know people like to run spread, but we don't do that because a lot of our kids have never played before.
Yeah, and coming into Norte Vista, I've been there for, a number of years with you. It all starts with your freshmen. I mean, you're teaching kids that come into high school how to play football because there isn't junior tackle football around Norte Vista at all.
Not really. I mean, we get some kids who play a little bit, but, we're going to get kids who look at their butt pad and they put it in the front. We have to show our kids how to get dressed. It's kind of crazy. But on the other hand, we got our kids to believe. I think the biggest thing is we get our kids to buy in and trust us. I jokingly say we feed them all the time because if you feed them, they'll be happy and they'll believe in it. And that's the biggest part. When the kids believe in it and they believe in you, you're going to be more successful.
Well, Coach, I know how much you do for those students at Norte Vista. I see it on a daily basis. You and I are good friends. I always wish you success, and I can't wait to see you on a Friday night as you are going to play against your buddies over at Arlington. Coach, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us today on The Coach's Perspective.
Thanks a lot. I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
He's the great Coach Ken Batdorf, and we'll be right back with more on The Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. And now my favorite part of the show with my best friend in the entire world, Pep Fernandez. How are you doing?
What is up, Jeff? Listen, we've got 1 week of league play already under our belt, so we got some big games coming up. And I know, we still have several weeks of regular season still in front of us, but these games, man, they're going to decide who we crown league champions. Like, they are big games coming up.
Well, we have some big ones this week. In fact, last week we had a couple great ones in the River Valley League as it started, but we have a couple good ones this week. We have Norte Vista versus Arlington, which you and I and Gazal will be on the call for. And then I think one of the better games of the year, Hillcrest versus Patriot. What do you think of those 2 matchups, especially that second one?
Listen, I'm super impressed by Patriot. We saw them last week on Riverside TV against Arlington. We weren't really sure, right? I think you said it several times. Like, we weren't really sure what Patriot was all about. Jeff, they look really good, and they were missing their star running back, too. So if they're healthy, that's going to be a real uphill battle for Hillcrest. I think Patriot, Hillcrest, of course, Norte Vista, like, they're all going to be battling for playoff spots if you consider Ramona as the favorite. So I think that Hillcrest versus Patriot game is going to be fantastic. I think it's going to come down to the end, whoever has the ball last, like that, a game that tight. And for the other Riverside TV game that we get to call, listen, I always love going out to Norte Vista. I always love seeing Coach Batdorf. And that game against Arlington, we saw last week, Arlington had a hard time stopping Patriots' run, right? We saw that. So now you take that and you magnify it, because Norte Vista is going to do the same thing with maybe arguably better running back. So, Arlington's going to have their hands full against this Novi team, who might be the hottest team in Riverside right now. They're coming on strong.
Yeah, we just had Coach Batdorf on. He had 9 different players score in the last 2 weeks of football. 9 different players. I mean, he's still trying to find his identity on offense, but when you have 9 different guys scoring, that shows that there is still some left in the cupboard for Ken Batdorf.
Coach Batdorf, I was texting with him late one night. I think it might have been during their bye week. He was texting me back and forth, and he said, they kind of stumbled out of the gate a little bit early on in the season, right? They lost that first game to Hesperia, but I think it's going to be one of those instances where this Norte Vista team, as the season gets longer, they're going to get better. So by the time they see Ramona, or by the time they get to the playoffs, they're going to be playing their best football of the season. I really believe that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, there are a lot of good football going around the city of Riverside. A tough loss over at 3rd and Chicago as John W. North lost to a very good Orange Vista team. What did you take away from a little bit you saw of that game?
Well, one, we knew going into this that Orange Vista was probably the team to beat, right, in the Ivy League. I mean, they are that good. They're one of the best teams in the Inland Empire, and it's not a shock. Greg Zomalt's their head coach. He's been a winner everywhere he's been. So we knew that they're the team to beat. But for JW North, I think the Ivy League is wide open in terms of maybe 2nd and 3rd place in those playoff spots. When you look at the other teams in the Ivy League, Elsinore, Rancho Verde, Heritage, Temescal Canyon, JW North is as good as any of those teams are. So, I mean, I think there's a real chance that at the end of the regular season, JW North might be your 2nd place team in that league, and they might get into the playoffs. And depending where, what division they get placed in by CIF, they could be this year's version of Arlington, right, from last year. Depending on the division they're in, this North team is pretty good, and their record's not going to show it. But if they get into the playoffs, Jeff, they could make a deep run. Yeah,
they definitely have the best non-conference schedule of any team in Riverside. That is for sure. Let's talk about Riverside Poly. Riverside Poly lost to a very good Paloma Valley team. And Paloma Valley, they're kind of rebuilding after they lost Bert Esposito, finally have themselves a pretty good team out there.
Yeah, Jeff, when you look at the Inland Empire as a whole, I think Paloma Valley is one of the surprise teams this season. They've been down for a couple of years, and this year they're really having a bounce-back season. Zach Dilley's their head football coach. He's doing a great job down there. And that Sun Belt League, which is, that middle tier of the Raincross Conference, it's tough, man. Vista Del Lago's good. Paloma Valley's good. Riverside Poly is a playoff team from a year ago. You guys saw Lakeside on Riverside TV beat Arlington in a thriller in that first game of the year. That's a very tough league. So I know it's a tough loss for Riverside Poly, the previous week against Paloma Valley. But when you look at that league, it's kind of understandable. That is a tough, tough league.
Yeah, and now let's go to the last team. We haven't covered them much, but we're going to have them next week, hopefully, is Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Fontana. Fontana, though, what you had mentioned earlier, was a CIF finalist last year. How good is this Notre Dame team with 3 different coaches in 3 years?
Yeah, so they're going to play Fontana here on Riverside TV. They lost to Rialto last week in their league opener. Yeah, so their league opener last week against Rialto, and we have the Raincross Conference in Riverside, but in San Bernardino they have the Arrowhead Athletic Conference, and that bottom tier is the Skyline League. So I think a lot of people forgot that Notre Dame actually moved the Skyline League. So that first league game against Rialto's a pretty good team. They got a really good running back, Dante Flower, but He couldn't stop Fowler. He had a big game. Rialto wins. Now Notre Dame has to pick up the pieces and play in a league that I think is very winnable. I mean, there's some teams in there that I think Notre Dame really has a shot at. And kind of like JW North, if you look at the overall record, it might not look that great on paper, but once you get to league play, they should be ultra competitive. Notre Dame should be able to pick up some wins in league and maybe sneak into the playoffs. And, again, playing Fontana in a couple weeks, next Saturday on Riverside TV, that is a game, if you're a Notre Dame fan, that is a game that they should probably win.
And talking about the final team in Riverside, and that is California School for the Deaf Riverside, continuing their dominance. We have them again. I mean, we saw them a couple weeks ago. How much fun are they to watch?
Listen, if you love touchdowns, if you love big plays, you know what I mean? Like that's the game to go watch. Plus, there's something, Jeff, like watching a football game on a Saturday afternoon with the sun out. Like there's something special about that, right? So I love watching them. They're exciting because they score a ton of points and they score a lot of touchdowns, and they've got some great players. And the guys, I think they all kind of share the same feeling, and they've echoed it several times, is that it's championship or bust this year. They were so close last year, and they feel like they got a chip on their shoulder because in that championship game, their top players got hurt. They didn't put their best foot forward. Like they feel like they could have had a chance to win that championship. But with all those guys coming back this year, like this is it, man. If CSDR is going to win a championship, it's going to be this season. And right now, they look fantastic.
Well, Pep, we've covered all of Riverside, and I'll tell you what, we're going to continue to do so. I think we cover high school football in Riverside better than any city in the entire world, and it's thankful because of guys like you, Gazal, JR, Nick Rice, the entire crew here at Riverside TV. So thanks again, Pep. We will see you Friday night on the call with you, Gazal, and myself at Arlington versus Norte Vista. Pep, Wednesday nights, Inland Sports Show, 6 p.m., and late nights, Inland Sports at 11 p.m., the recap show. You always do a great job, Pep. Thank you for everything you do for the city of Riverside and high school football in general.
It's just an honor to be here with Mr. Riverside, so it's an honor.
He's Pep Fernandez. I'm Jeff Gorham, and that will do it for another edition of The Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. We'll see you next week, everyone.